USVI News, your Virgin Islands connection.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for USVI News. I'm Emily Matson. The VI legislature heard testimonies on Wednesday from the Office of Disaster Recovery. Senators heard from testifiers who shared updates on all capital projects in the territory, including the process with FEMA and reimbursements from the 2017 hurricanes. Testifiers explained how many projects have moved forward over the years, and they've waited as they waited for funding from FEMA.
That's what the Housing Authority has done with some of their projects, that they've used their own resources to get their projects started. And that's why you're seeing, some of their buildings already been repaired. And now they're working on submitting the reimbursements to us. So yes, that is an option. It's not an option for the residents, of course. It would have to be the Housing Authority to go ahead and do that and then be able to be reimbursed once the project is obligated.
Cases of COVID-19 have increased just a bit in the territory, but they are remaining steady. According to the latest numbers from the Virgin Islands Department of Health, there are 227 current active cases of COVID-19 territory-wide, with 137 on St. Croix, 89 on St. Thomas, and 1 on St. John. And as daily COVID-19 cases continue to drop nationwide, too, so does the pace at which people are getting those booster shots. And it comes at a time when mask mandates are being lifted across the U.S. Here in the Virgin Islands, the state of emergency has just been automatically extended to March 11th, meaning all current masking and COVID mitigation regulations remain in effect. As of this week, 55,637 Virgin Islanders are fully vaccinated, though the VI Department of Health doesn't specify how many people have received those booster doses.
The pace of new COVID-19 booster shots is now at an all-time low in the U.S., as many pandemic precautions are being rolled back in some places.
We're not where we want to be with COVID hospitalizations, but the trend is definitely in the right direction.
The latest CDC data shows about 64% of the U.S. population is fully vaccinated. About 28% have received a booster shot. Among those eligible for a booster, less than a third who originally got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine have been boosted, compared with 52% of those who received their initial 2 doses of Moderna and 47% who got the Pfizer vaccine.
We certainly, I think, have reached a point where there aren't going to be a lot of people voluntarily kind of seeking out vaccines. That crowd is all vaccinated. So we're going to have to use other policy efforts. We should continue doing outreach to people to try to make it easier. We can't quite give up yet. I think we need to keep working on vaccinating more people.
The newest booster data comes as many mask mandates are being lifted, though not yet here in the Virgin Islands. The CDC also hasn't changed its guidance when it comes to COVID restrictions.
But right now, we've got the state saying one thing and the CDC saying they're looking at this again, and that's just not enough.
With a vaccine decision delayed for children under 5, one health official says prevention remains the best medicine.
Take all the precautions that work, whether it's masking, social distancing, hygiene.
Officials say being fully vaccinated and boosted provides the best protection against severe outcomes from the virus. You can get a vaccine at the VI Department of Health's pop-up vaccination sites, as well as community health clinics, doctors' offices, and pharmacies on St. Croix, St. John, and St. Thomas. You can also visit COVID-19 USVI for a full listing of sites or to schedule a vaccine. Many sites allow you to book appointments for the specific brand of vaccine or booster you prefer based on availability. And some pharmacies are offering walk-in appointments or walk-ins and no appointment necessary. Britain's Prince Andrew has agreed to settle a sex abuse lawsuit filed by Virginia Giuffre. The 38-year-old says she was a teenager when billionaire Jeffrey Epstein trafficked her to the British Royal.
Prince Andrew's legal battle with Virginia Giuffre ended when the two reached a financial settlement for an undisclosed amount. A statement filed in a New York court said Andrew accepts that Giuffre suffered both as an established victim of abuse and as a result of unfair public attacks.
How much pressure was Prince Andrew under by the royal family to settle?
Everyone in the royal family was obviously very keen to avert a full-blown trial.
The settlement comes just weeks before the Queen's second son was set to be deposed under oath.
There is no doubt in my mind that the possibility of his being dismantled piece by piece, question by question, and his character being shattered to pieces during the course of a deposition. Those are the reasons that Prince Andrew would settle.
At the heart of the case is Giuffre's accusation that convicted sex offender, the late Jeffrey Epstein, trafficked her to the prince in the early 2000s when she was just a teenager, and says she was raped by Andrew, a charge the prince denies.
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady.
Is Prince Andrew's settlement an admission of guilt?
Prince Andrew's settlement is clearly not an admission of guilt on his part, and it was drafted specifically that way.
Andrew acknowledged Epstein's trafficking of young girls and says he now regrets his association with him, adding that he'll also be making a donation to Giuffre's charity. Buckingham Palace has declined to comment, but the deal avoids further potential embarrassment for the royal family as the Queen celebrates 70 years on the throne.
Giuffre's attorney says lawyers on both sides will request a dismissal of the lawsuit within a month. A new report projects the U.S. sea level will rise as much in the next 30 years as it did in the past 100. NOAA led the report, which shows how scientists are increasingly confident U.S. coasts will see another 10 to 12 inches of sea level rise by 2050. The implications of the forecast are enormous. Scientists say the rise will lead to a significant increase in the frequency of coastal flooding, even on sunny days. Every inch of sea level rise also amplifies hurricane storm surge, coastal erosion, and wetland loss. Those are impacts which U.S. coasts are already well familiar with, especially here in the Virgin Islands and in the Caribbean region. The report says sea level rise projections are essentially locked in through 2050. After that, the amount of sea level rise the U.S. will experience is highly dependent on how much the world cuts fossil fuel emissions and limits global temperature rise. Disposable face masks have generated a mountain of medical waste during the COVID-19 pandemic. A company in Taiwan says it has found a smart solution by turning old masks into useful electronics. Reporter Tina Kraus has the story.
Scenes like this of pollution from the pandemic scattered on streets and clogging oceans got engineer Arthur Huang thinking.
This can be a mask today. It can be completely something else tomorrow.
His company, MiniWiz, is giving old face masks a new life, recycling them into wireless phone chargers.
His name is Wally.
Taking inspiration from Hollywood's Wall-E robot who was left to clean up a dirty planet, Huang created Trashpresso, a solar-powered recycling machine aiming to do the same. The robotic device shreds medical masks, heats them up, and turns them into a sort of plastic dough.
These plastic waste, especially the mask, is actually almost 100% made from plastic. It's polypropylene based.
All that plastic creates a hard shell, which is made into a wireless charger using electronic parts.
This is a function that everyone needs or everyone wants, especially during the pandemic.
Bank executive Cindy Lin saw her recycling efforts pay off after asking employees to hand over their used masks. She says we collected around 10,000 of them, and they were converted into colorful phone chargers as gifts for everyone. One charger is made every 3 minutes. In a venture Huang hopes will inspire others around the world to use their energy to make a difference.
Wow, what an amazing invention. A conservation group found face masks could take as long as 450 years to break down, slowly turning into microplastics that can harm our marine wildlife and ecosystems. So speaking of recycling, an initiative in St. John will likely make a big impact on plastic pollution here in the territory. This Friday, the nonprofit Island Green Living on St. John will hold a ribbon-cutting ceremony for its ocean-bound plastics recycling program. The organization says the plastics will be processed and recycled into useful products, much like the one you saw there, and will complement the existing aluminum recycling program and other sustainable initiatives that already exist here in the territory. Great news for sure. A look at your local forecast is straight ahead here on USVI News. Plus, Jamaica's two-man bobsled team takes to the track at the Winter Olympics in Beijing. We'll show you the run down the track and tell you how they did when USVI News comes right back. Waiters and waitresses in Puerto Rico are demanding a fair wage at a protest recently outside the Capitol building in San Juan. They're calling for better salaries and, among other things. Our USVI News correspondent Francis Felix brings us the story.
The group Justicia Salarial Salary Equity calls on servers and tip workers to a manifestation and stop work during Valentine's Day that seeks the end of the minimum wage of $2.13 per hour.
One Fair Wage movement is a movement that exists in the United States, and we are trying to promote that in Puerto Rico. We are doing that through the introduction of Senate Bill 754, which seeks to eliminate what we call the sub-minimum wage. Waiters in Puerto Rico can receive a pay as low as $2.13 an hour, and they are supposed to complete the rest of the money that they need to get the minimum wage of $8.50 in Puerto Rico through tips. We know that that doesn't happen many times. Employers are supposed to pay the difference if workers through the tips cannot get to the minimum wage, but we know that doesn't always happen. The sub-minimum wage is also a source of uncertainty. Workers don't really know how much their paycheck is going to be. It will fluctuate according to the season, according to the time in which they are working, and so on. And furthermore, the sub-minimum wage is a source of discrimination. That is to say, clients can change the tips that they give, determine the tips that they give people, depending on many factors besides the service that they give. You know, their appearance, their race, their gender, you know, their whatever reason. All sorts of forms of discrimination can be part of the determination of what type of tip a person gets. And finally, it makes people more vulnerable, particularly women, but not only women, makes them more vulnerable to harassment by clients. You know, that they are always in the situation in which when they are confronted with some sort of harassment, they have two choices. They can either denounce that and confront that, in which case they can say goodbye to the tip, which they need, or in order to get the tip that they need, they have to accept, you know, and yield to this type of harassment, which is an inhuman treatment. We shouldn't go for that.
This movement have the probability to become reality here in Puerto Rico?
Well, I think there are many waiters and waitresses in Puerto Rico who sympathize with the movement, who sympathize with our goal. The problem is, as I said, most of these workers are in a very, very vulnerable situation. In Puerto Rico, a job is something very hard to come by. People are very afraid, understandably so, of losing their job. And if they were to come, for example, to this picket, they could probably face some sort of reprisal.
This event did not have the turnout expected due to possible sanctions of employers who own restaurants and the little communication about this event. But the leaders of Justicia Salarial expressed that they will continue to bring their claims and participate of public hearings about the measures presented. From Old San Juan, Puerto Rico, Francis Felix.